Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of the Freshly Brewed podcast. This is more of a mini cast, so to speak. It's just going to be me going over a topic that I probably wouldn't want to dedicate a full-on, in-depth video to, but I still want to talk about just a bit. I know it's been a while since I've done a video, but it's mostly because I've just been thinking of ideas and directions to kind of take the channel with. Everything that I've kind of done up to this point has either been, a dumb meme video or music oriented, more serious stuff. And I do want to continue doing that, but I don't want that to be the only thing I do. I got to diversify my bonds. So I'm just thinking of other ideas to kind of facilitate that in the meantime. That's kind of been the reason for a big part of the downtime. And as for like podcast-esque stuff, I would definitely say you can expect to see more stuff like this, more of a traditional podcast with other people, more focused, like central topic that we would all have some input on, stuff like that. Again, this is just kind of a mini cast, just me kind of getting a feel for doing some longer, more just vocal based recordings and topics to try out based off of how this kind of goes. So with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get to the actual topic of this little mini cast, and that's going to be streetwear versus higher end fashion, which might seem like a weird topic because everything else again that I've made has been pretty well clear of the whole streetwear-esque scene, fashion scene. So let me go ahead and give you some backstory. Myself personally, I've been into streetwear, I would say, for about 3-4 years at this point. Right around like junior year of high school, which doesn't really help the whole stereotype that always goes around. But I promise you, never have been, never was one of those hype beasts, buying shit with their mom's credit card and buying anything that says Supreme on it, anything that has a box logo, it's gonna make me look cool. None of that shit. I promise. I got my own shit. I get my own shit with my own money, and I get things that actually look decent. I look at older pieces and stuff like that, things that actually have some kind of history behind their inspiration, like their designs and stuff like that. But anyway, so I gravitated more towards streetwear as a kind of style because I used to be somebody who wore the same 2 sweatshirts, same pair of jeans, same pair of shoes on repeat, even in the summertime, because I could not care less about how I looked. It was not up there on my list of priorities. I didn't look homeless. Well, I did have my hair kind of long. You know what? I'm going to scratch that back. It was a rough time. All right? And it's not because, like, I was broke. It's not because my family's, like, dirt poor. It's not like I can't afford these things. It's just I never really bothered with it. I never really cared about it until, once I started realizing, the whole social hemisphere that goes on in high school. I was like, maybe I should start making myself look somewhat decent and somewhat appealing to other individuals. So I started looking around online for different kind of like styles to go with, and I found streetwear based stuff. I thought it was pretty interesting, again, with those designs and the creative focus of it all. And since then, I've been draining all of my money into it with no regrets. But enough of my life story. That's just kind of to give some background as to why I care to talk about something like this, and why I'm kind of invested in something like this, and why I want to talk about this. Streetwear has always been a pretty good middle ground, so to speak, in between normal fashion and higher end stuff, and what I consider like 4 key categories, right? Price, quality, availability, and design. So like, let's say your normal stuff is like, Target, Macy's, stuff like that. All right. It's $10-15 shirts, dresses that you can get wherever, it's not that expensive. And your higher end stuff is obviously going to be shit like Gucci and Louis Vuitton. That's going to probably cost you an organ if you want to get, something from them. So streetwear kind of falls nicely in between them in terms of like price, right? It's going to cost a bit more than my Target t-shirt, But again, I'm not going to have to completely sell off a kidney like I would with some higher end stuff. Now, depending on the resale stuff, you might have to, but resale stuff is something that's a whole other topic. And maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll make a video on that or another little mini cast, but that's besides the point. Anyways, what I'm trying to say, it's nice middle ground. It's like, I can pay $44 for a t-shirt. That's not going to completely break my bank, but at the same time, it's going to be it's going to be a little bit more than just $10. But with that price increase does come a bit of a quality increase. And again, it's right kind of in between. It's probably going to last a little bit longer than my Target t-shirt will, although if you're buying Antisocial Social Club, then you're just getting ripped off, and frankly, it might last less than your Target t-shirt. But, if you're getting an actual kind of brand that has some quality fabric most of the time, you're going to end up with something that's going to last a little bit longer than those kind of clothes. But, in terms of being made out of the finest leathers and silks and cotton from around the world, yeah, you're obviously going to look at your higher end stuff for that. And in terms of availability, right? Again, with reselling being so rampant now in streetwear and things selling out instantly, obviously, it's a lot harder to say in terms of availability how available some pieces can be. You either are there on drop day for most things or you're gone. But I say that in terms of, again, like if I line up at a Supreme store, I can go in there and I can have a general feel of what's going to be available to me as a consumer, because things that are expensive are going to be hard to have them be available. That's kind of the key thing. Target has shirts available for pretty much anybody. Macy's has stuff available for pretty much anybody. Louis Vuitton, yeah, it's not available to everybody. Streetwear stuff is kind of in the middle of that. Not everybody is going to be interested in it. Not everybody may be able to afford that, especially other pieces. But it's not as unavailable in terms of like a price point as higher end stuff. Although I guess maybe quantity stuff might vary with reselling stuff, but I think it still kind of fits in that that little pocket. And I think also because what was I gonna say? It's because like the design. That's right. What am I even? I'm rambling over there. The designs are also kind of a real big reason for streetwear kind of being a nice little middle ground, right? They're very flexible in terms of designs. They are able to take a lot of different directions, streetwear brands. If you go down to like Target, Walmart, Macy's, right? You go look at some t-shirts. You're going to get some real basic ass graphic tees, some kind of pop culture reference, some kind of superhero on them, or some dumbass quote like, I have a master's in video games, stupid shit, right? If you look at more serious clothing, if you look like button-ups and polos, they're going to be very simple colorways, nothing really going on in terms of a design or anything like that. It's not going to be appealing. It's going to be just kind of really cookie cutter. If you look at then higher end stuff, that's when things get a little bit... It's weird because it's almost similar, but not really. Because the thing is with higher end stuff, right? I will say younger people are getting into that kind of style a bit more, especially with younger celebrities and rappers and social media presence. That definitely has a kind of a bigger appeal to younger people now. But the main clientele for Louis Vuitton and Gucci is not going to be an 18-year-old who sold his TV to buy a belt. It's rich people. And these people are probably also going to be old. And what they want is they want the brand to be respected. So what that's going to mean is that their designs are, the main majority of their designs that aren't oriented towards, say, a younger crowd are going to be their logo or their monogram on a jacket and a shirt or some pants. And that's it. And it's going to be in easy, identifiable colorways. It's going to be the Louis Vuitton kind of amber. It's going to be the Gucci green and red. That's what it's going to be. Streetwear stuff gets kind of that good middle ground. It's got some flexibility with the designs and the ideas. I personally, I'm not going to buy a shirt that has fuck plastered all over it, but I like the fact that that's an option for them when they design it, that they say, I want to be able to do this. Like I'm talking about Supreme. I think they did that, but it's good to know that they're willing to do things that aren't, just safe. They're able to go out there, and sometimes you get a good hit, sometimes you get a miss. If you find shirts, that have references to old ads and stylized quotes from old obscure movies, or some kind of reference that isn't, like notably mainstream, that's some cool shit. You have shirts, sweatshirts, jackets, pants that are releasing in colorways like peach and mint green. That's not normal. Again, that's cool as hell. And it adds a lot to that appeal because it's something that is different. It's something that stands out. That's kind of part of, like what people buy clothes for in general, is that they want something, if you're into like fashion, you want something that stands out or something that is appealing, something that has kind of a sort of status to it, exclusivity. That's what I'm trying to say. That's why a lot of people like brands like Supreme and Palace, and of course other stuff like Louis Vuitton and Gucci. Anything that's more higher than a Target shirt. It's been ingrained into a lot of higher end stuff, of course, but I think definitely, stuff like Supreme, it's got its roots in skate, the skate culture in New York, and it was, had that exclusivity to, like skaters in New York, a brand that they could identify with, and that a brand that represented them. And of course that kind of, that has changed. I think, Supreme still, to me, I think is founded in like skate culture, but obviously now with celebrities and stuff wearing Supreme and Palace and different brands like that, it's branched away. Now people say, oh, I'm wearing this because of so-and-so celebrity, or I'm wearing this because of so-and-so poster on social media. And I also promise you, I'm not like one of those assholes, I swear. But that's part of the reason that why they get into it. They say, yeah, this is something that I am part of this. I'm hot shit. I'm cool. I guess that's kind of like a launching point into going into why I don't like that streetwear is becoming more in line with high fashion, because now it's going from, this is something, a part of a subculture that I can identify with, to this is just, I am rich, therefore I wear rich people clothing, stereotypical rich people clothing. It kind of just strips away all those four other things that I listed too. The soul, so to speak, which sounds corny as hell. I'm talking about clothing, but it really is kind of just fitting. Obviously, the whole factor of this topic was inspired by the fact that Supreme and Louis Vuitton have done a collaboration. They had the whole reveal over at a Paris Fashion Week. How long ago? I don't even remember. There were leaks before then. There were rumors going around that Supreme got bought by the Louis Vuitton parent company, which, let's be thankful here, that was not true. And now, finally, in July, stuff has been rolling out at pop-up shops. There's been 5 or 6, and I think on the 14th they're gearing up for a broader release. And I think just recently, a day or two ago, somebody found some backdoor links for Europe, and they had products that went online there. They're probably going to get released over here in the States online probably soon. But reactions to this kind of collection, reactions have been split ever since the first leak started to come out. People think it's either really cool or it's lame as hell. And if you could not tell already, I am in that secondary camp. I think they are really lame. Pretty much all the pieces from this collaboration, I just think it's really lame and lazy. They're just kind of, Supreme and Louis Vuitton, they're two separate areas of fashion that don't really have a whole lot of reason to be crossing paths, other than both of them know that they can make a shit ton of money off of having a collaboration. I think that's pretty much it. If we're talking about a standard streetwear fit, right? if I'm gonna throw on something basic. Well, not me, because I probably wouldn't wear some shit like that. Somebody's gonna wear something basic, some basic streetwear fit, right? They'll put like a Supreme shirt on, pair of Levi's, Ultra Boosts or Yeezys, Jordans, and then maybe if they want to add a little bit of a flair, so to speak, they'll put on like a Gucci belt, or they'll have like a Louis Vuitton phone case, or something like that. A small piece. They're not going to have something extravagant. It's just a small piece that isn't going to completely break the bank, excuse me, and is probably going to be in line price-wise with some of the other items that I'm sure they're going to be wearing. But now, with this kind of like collab, it's just odd. It's just odd because full-on clothing runs, full-on accessory runs, like, it just doesn't really work. And what would really be detrimental to this being, for me, the breaking point is just the design. It's just lazy. There's just nothing new here. There's nothing good here. See, here's the thing. Here's the thing with when clothing companies do collaborations, right? With any kind of collaboration, the brand that is kind of like, let's say, like the main company, the main brand for the collaboration is going to be limited in terms of what they can do, because it all depends on what the other brand is willing to allow in terms of designs and stuff like that. Like Supreme, when they collab with the North Face and Vans, they can have some really good pieces, and they can also have some that look like shit, because North Face and Vans are willing to have more of a little hands-off approach, nothing too outrageous. Well, depending on your definition, outrageous, but they allow for creative flexibility. But when Supreme collabed with Jordan Brand is very strict with how they want their brand and their logo being represented in collaborations. So what you got out of that was really lackluster. It was just Supreme with the R replaced by the Jumpman logo on shirts, coaches jackets, hats, sweatpants, and then the Jordan 5s, the shoes, again, were boring. They were black, white, and had the camo colorway, and the only other thing was what? You saw like Sup from Supreme and the mesh on the side, and that was it. That was lame as hell, but it's because Jordan Brand is a lot more protective of their brand and their logo than the previous ones that I mentioned. So when you're talking about Louis Vuitton, which, like I said earlier, relies on their brand being easily recognizable. They rely on the fact that when somebody looks over and they see somebody wearing something from Louis Vuitton, they can recognize it right away. That's why I knew this was going to be just going to be lackluster, because the designs are it's just the Louis Vuitton monogram plastered all over the clothing with Supreme intertwined every now and then at like an angle or something, and that's it. And the colorways aren't anything like super interesting. I think the most interesting one I've seen is the camo, which I'll admit it looks nice, but there's no reason that couldn't have been done independently of a collaboration. So it's just, there's nothing unique, which to me just raises the question, why are you doing this at all? And of course, like I already answered earlier, it's just for money. It's just for money. They just know they can make a ton of money off of this, and there's a huge amount of demand, to be quite frank. A lot of people were like, oh, well, maybe, these higher prices, this is a collaboration with a high-end fashion retailer, this is going to be expensive. Two things. A, yeah, they were fucking expensive. I think, Jesus Christ, like, what's going on right now? I think the jackets I saw were like $3,000. Maybe $5,000. The box logo hoodie was like $1,000. The camp caps were $500 something. The deck and the trunk combo was like $10,000. That's just normal retail. The resale of these things is going to be absolutely insane. But again, they've been selling like hotcakes. The pop-up shops have been have huge lines. They're selling out in, a day. People are coming back for restocks, and they're selling out of those too. I mean, geez, I think the one over in LA was shut down by the police. I don't think it was anything too crazy. I think there was just too many people. But yeah, it kind of furthers my point. There are people out there who are willing to buy this. I think, there was a question, well, is this being driven up by the fact that maybe this is a one-time collab? Honestly, I'm a little on the side of like, why would it be? I don't think the potential that it's just a one-off is going to drive up people, is causing so many people to get in on this. I would not be surprised if this becomes something that happens every other season, potentially every season, because this is a great way to make a lot of money. I would say that maybe the one thing that it could point to being kind of a one-off or maybe once a season is that they don't want to devalue Louis Vuitton's association, Louis Vuitton in terms of it being associated with Supreme. Supreme has gotten a lot more like mainstream appeal, obviously. So maybe some at Louis Vuitton might want to be like, well, if we keep associating ourselves with it, it's like when Stussy ended up becoming, like mallcore stuff, It's like, do you really want a Diamond Supply Co? Shit like that, it's like, do you really want to start falling into that territory? But I think with how much this shit has been selling, how much hype this shit has generated, how many like celebrities and shit you see wearing this, I don't know. I don't see this being the end. And, that's why now I'm questioning, I was like, is this going to end up becoming something that other brands are going to have to do? Am I going to start seeing, Palace collabing with Gucci now in order to keep up? I know Gosha is doing a collection next year with Burberry. I don't think Burberry is on the same kind of like recognizable tier as Louis Vuitton and Gucci, but I still think it's up there. But, is this going to end up just becoming the norm now? Is that kind of middle ground gone in terms of where streetwear sat? And now is it becoming sort of absorbed into the higher ends of fashion? I mean, I don't know. Who knows what the future is going to hold? But personally, I do not like the sound of that. I don't like the idea of that. I enjoy my middle ground. I enjoy having something that I guess I enjoy having something that I guess other people probably feel the same. It's just something that you can say, this is mine. Because you've had to deal with hype beasts, you've had to deal with resellers, you've had to deal with idiots. There's still part of you that wants to say, yeah, but this is still mine. Once it gets absorbed into higher fashion stuff, once that kind of gets into that process, it's like, can you really say that anymore? You kind of just end up losing that creative prowess in order just to keep up with popularity and status and higher end stuff. And I think that just kind of loses what the appeal, the main appeal to me at least, that streetwear had. But I think I've rambled for long enough. I think this is somewhat focused. For a first attempt, I don't think it was that bad. Just kind of me getting my thoughts out there, my feet in the water in terms of longer kind of recordings and different topics like this. So, let me know how you kind of felt about this, if this was pretty good, pretty bad, what you'd like me to kind of change, improve on, and if you are as passionate and worked up as I am, let me know how you feel in the comments. Tell me what your opinions on this potentially irrelevant to the grand scheme of things thing is. I would love to hear it. But I think that's going to be it for me today. Thank you all for listening. Certainly do appreciate it. And I'll see y'all later.